we're back. Welcome to Season 2 of Generation Aggie, a podcast dedicated to connecting with Aggie alumni. I'm Julliet Hill, a fourth-year communication major, streamer, and your host. This season, I'll talk with a diverse and fun group of alumni as they share their stories from their time at UC Davis and after graduation. I'm excited for this season's lineup of guests, as some I've admired for a long time, and now I get to share their stories. Let's welcome our next guest. Welcome to Season 2 of Generation Aggie. I'm your host, Julliet Hill. I'm a fourth-year communication major and social media intern here at UC Davis. Today, for the second episode, we're here in studio again. For Generation Aggie, this podcast is all about hoping to connect future, current, and prospective students with Aggie alumni. For today's episode, I'm here with our guest, Jesse Rodriguez.
Hey.
Welcome, Jesse. Thank you for coming all the way from Sacramento. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Do you mind telling us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, hi, Juliet. So my name is Jesse Rodriguez. I was born in LA, son of Salvadoran immigrants. I grew up there for until about the age of 15 when my family decided to move all the way up to Northern California. Came up to Sacramento, and that's where I finished high school. Decided I did want to come to Davis, so I applied right off the bat. However, did not get in right away. So because of that, and also because it's just it was '08 and there was housing crisis, economic, uncertainty, challenges. So community college was for me, and so I pursued the community college route. That's where I went, navigated through different majors, and eventually found the one for me. Eventually transferred to Davis, and its challenges as a transfer student, challenges as a first-generation student. Eventually made it through with a major in economics, minored in sociology. Graduated, started working in public policy for a few years before I decided, maybe I should try something else, and went to business school here at Davis as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually pivoted into the finance industry, which is where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you. So, first gen, transfer Aggie, on the board of directors for Cal Aggie Alumni Association. So many different aspects to your career here while you were at Davis. So your major was economics for your undergrad, and then you came back and got your master's. So are you working in that field now? Are you applying what you majored in while you were at UC Davis?
I would say yes, because economics, econ, and then even the social aspects that I took, right? They're pretty applicable to a lot of different industries.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, when I went to the public policy arena, it was, fairly applicable as far as just, kind of like just general, state functions, and then like, all right, like how are the taxes, and
Mm-hmm.
just a few little things, right? But now that I'm in the finance industry, and I'm looking at the markets on a regular basis, I'm looking at all right, like consumer habits and business activity, whether it's profitability is going up, just based on So yeah, I would say econ kind of like prepped me quite a bit for a general understanding of just economic view of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then macro, micro. But then with the MBA really kind of just gave me that more inside look into all right, like what does a business go through on the day to day? What are some of the key factors that they're considering? And so when I'm doing my job and analyzing a company for a deal that I'm looking at, then yeah, I at least have that perspective as well that I got from the MBA.
Awesome. And so what is your favorite part of your job right now?
So my favorite part, there's so many different aspects to it. So I'm currently a senior associate with Upwelling Capital Group, which is a local investment advisory firm. We work with they're called institutional investors. So they're public pension plans, family offices, insurance companies who invest in private equity and venture capital.
Okay.
So we work with them, but we also work with the fund managers, so venture capital funds, private equity funds, and a few other asset classes. All that to say is when we work with clients, we're looking at companies from both the startup, like startup like to the growth, which is once they start picking up, growing, getting a little bit bigger, to slightly bigger companies. So revenue is already significantly bigger, and they're fairly profitable. So those are what I like is the fact that I'm looking at different companies from completely different sizes and a different part of their life cycle, as a way to say it. But then on top of it, it's not just companies here in the U.S. All right, we're also looking at companies in Latin America. We're looking at companies in Europe. We've actually also looked at companies in Africa and India. So I like that global aspect of the job. When I was an undergrad, I had 2 internships, one with the World Trade Center here in Sacramento, and then one with the Department of Commerce. So I thought, okay, like when I was on my way to, when I was going through undergrad, I thought, all right, like I want to do some sort of international related type of work. And my first career didn't really have that international component too much, right? It was California focused. But now that I'm here at my current position, like I'm on the phone with folks. Actually, this morning I was on a call with some folks from Canada. Right?
Oh wow! Okay.
It's not too far off.
Yeah.
But like literally on one day I'm talking to folks across the country in different countries across the globe. I love that component of it. So
it seems like there's never a boring day. You're always in something different.
There's always something to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So when you were at Davis, did you ever change your major, or did you always come in knowing what you wanted to major in?
So I went through my major, decision challenges in when I was in community college, right?
Okay.
Which I guess it kind of would make sense if I would have come straight to Davis, right? I wasn't sure what I wanted to really do. I thought at one point, okay, should I do like some sort of accounting, business oriented? But then I pivoted into engineering. I thought, okay, engineering, might be good for me. But then I took one econ course, and the professor just kind of he just sold, it just the way that the class felt. It had a little bit of everything that I liked, a little bit of math, a little bit of just like application. World, just a world component, like it's actually applicable to what people do on a day to day. And so that's kind of like why I was sold on econ at that time. And then, so once I came to Davis, economics was the major that I was already like happy with pursuing. It just became after that it just became the other thing was, all right, what else should I add? Like what other classes, right? Because the econ major here in Davis, when I had it, there were a few other units that I was gonna have to take on top of it, right? Because some majors require more units than others, and econ was one that didn't require too many. So that's when I was able to get that social minor, because I was able to take a few courses for that, and I guess that was the bigger challenge, deciding what other classes I wanted to take. And social, I thought that was really interesting. Taking classes on like just the family, and then criminology, and just very different, or I guess a different component of our day-to-days than just the economic aspect.
I feel like once you get in the swing of classes here, you sort of figure out like you want to do more, and that's when you expand into those other areas. For me, I'm a communication major, and it was the same thing. I was like, I need more things to fill up my class schedule, and so I got into film studies because that was another area that intrigued me. So I feel like a lot of people end up picking up a minor or double major once they sort of plant their feet on the ground here and realize what they want to do. So you are a double Aggie. You loved it here. You wanted to spend some more time. What were the differences transitioning from undergrad to grad school at Davis?
So, after undergrad, I worked for a few years, and so I grew up a little bit, right? So there were a few differences that's just on the personal level. Because when I came as an undergrad, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right? There was a lot of uncertainty. I transferred here thinking like, all right, like my whole focus has to be on my grades, and I got to make sure, and I have to make sure I study as much as possible, and I'm fully focused. And so that first year when I transferred out, I feel like I may have missed a few of the aspects of the campus, right? Like a few activities that that are held for students. I missed out on making certain friendships. Like just because as a transfer student here, I was just it was already kind of like third year, so I felt like a lot of people already had their groups and their friends, and so so that was a little tough. But then eventually met some good friends, and yeah, that was all fine. But then fast forward for the MBA. At that point, I already kind of knew what I wanted to do, which was like pursue more business and finance related type of job after graduation, and I was transitioning from my career. So I came a little bit more prepared, and through the work that I had, I was very comfortable networking, and I've had a few different skill sets. And so for my master's, I got engaged again in the leadership within my program. So I was on the Dean Student Advisory Council. So I was on a quarterly basis meeting with like the assistant deans and the faculty, and then kind of like speaking on behalf of my cohort, like my class. And on top of that, I was active in actually putting on events for the students for the MBA classes. And so I was definitely much more active, and I think that just helped position me in a kind of like, I don't know, like in the leadership, like for other people, like they saw me as a leader on campus. I was would get invited to different more events than I probably would have if I would have just been staying at home, kind of like how I did in my undergrad days.
Yeah.
So then eventually that actually kind of helped me land my current role as well, because I got a job with an alumni from the MBA. So he started his own firm here in Davis, and met him through some events through the campus, and then kind of hit it off, and that eventually led to a position with the firm, and kind of like that's where I am now 4 years later.
I think a lot of people don't get involved soon enough, and it's difficult, especially I'm sure coming in as a transfer student. You sort of you don't know where to place yourself, because like you said, all these relationships are already established. So it's nice hearing that like you got that second shot once you came back. So what was your favorite memory of UC Davis, whether that's during undergrad, grad school?
Okay, so I'll briefly share a few, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one was study abroad.
Okay.
So I was, again, like that's something that I think is just an unbelievable opopportunity that like I would say everybody should to try to make the most of it. Right?
I did it. Yes.
Okay. Because when else are you gonna have an opportunity to go abroad to another country and live there for a month over the summer or for a quarter, and then just be like in a safe space with your classmates, with professors, where you're both learning and you get to just experience new things. And again, as a first gen student, growing up, I've told this story before, like growing up watching telenovelas with my family, and seeing like all the actors travel to like different parts of the world. I was like, oh, that looks really cool, but like how am I ever gonna do that, right?
Yeah.
So by having that opportunity as a student, it just opened my eyes into like, okay, no, this is possible. And like that since then, like I've traveled quite a bit, and it just made it that much more easy on a personal level, just to be comfortable being in a new place. All right, like stepping out of the airport and just figuring out my way, like even though I don't understand the language of that's being spoken or on the signage, but So that was one. Two, I would say I got to give a shout out to KDVS here, the local radio, the station here on campus. So when I was a student, I was also playing for a ska reggae band. So I played bass, and so I was playing with this band, like, across Sacramento and like in the Bay Area, and more and even Reno, so like kind of like more the northern area, out here. And so I reached out to the station, and they actually invited us to do a whole hour set, like, in the studio, like on a Saturday night or Sunday night, one of the two. But it was really cool because I was able to come with the band and play a whole hour set that was recorded, so we were able to take that home with us. But like we invited our family to listen in, we invited our friends, and so so it kind of like felt like we were celebrities in a way, right? So so just that that another opportunity that like it was really cool that I made the most of as a student.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people can say they did that, so that's awesome. I studied abroad just this past summer, and I completely agree. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and if you can make it happen, absolutely do it, because it really changes your outlook on life overall. So what groups were you involved in while you were at Davis? I know you're first gen, you're transfer. We just heard you're in a band, so what did you get involved in while you were here?
So what I got involved with, one, intramural soccer. So intramural sports was always like my go-to, right? So that was easy because I played soccer. But then I got really involved with the salsa club on campus. At the time, it was called Salsa de Adicción. And so every week, every Thursday, they would have like a salsa lesson, a bachata lesson at the pavilion, or whatever it's called these days.
Yeah, the University Credit Center
now.
Yeah.
So every week we'd have a lesson there, and so I got really, I took classes, I learned how to dance, and that was just something that I've actually carried on into my post graduation.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, but and then, I guess what I wish I could have gotten more involved with, and I did a little bit. I kind of briefly started going to like some of the business clubs and economics clubs. I just wish I would have maybe participated a little bit more, because it probably would have helped me kind of get to know the industry a little bit better as a student, rather than figure it out now post graduation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like established a network of friends that had those similar interests as well. So maybe I could have gotten a little bit more engaged with those. But the soccer and salsa, that has helped me in a lot of other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I as a COVID student, I guess you could say, I definitely have groups that I wish I would have joined sooner or been a part of, but that transition is sort of hard when you leave and then you come back. It was like a difficult adjustment period, but you were very involved when you were here. So we just mentioned your dancing experience. You're co-founder of Dance on the Edge. So would you mind telling us more about that project?
Sure. So Dance on the Edge, yeah, it's a organization, company that we put on Latin dancing events, primarily out in the public. We do free Latin dancing across Sacramento, just open to the community, right? Our signature event is hosted right in Old Sacramento on the waterfront, and so that's a series that we do throughout the summer, where we bring out about, I guess I want to say like maybe like 500 people to come out on a regular basis. But we do a full lesson. We'll do a full hour lesson, and then we bring DJs, live artists, performers to just come out and do their thing for the next 3 hours. So it's a nice little evening on a Saturday. We're definitely activating Sacramento because it's a growing city, but there's sometimes it's sometimes lacking in events, but also even just cultural events. So we bring that Latin flair to the city. But when we started, I started it with some fellow like Aggie alumni, but also some Sac State alumni. So it was a cool little,
Merger
between, between. And all of us who got our start dancing for the clubs on our campuses.
Okay.
Right. And then, but we loved it so much, then we wanted to keep it going and kind of expand it to the community in Sacramento. But we also do more than just like, our events, but we'll also like partner with other organizations. Actually, tomorrow I will be with my sister's house. It's a local nonprofit in Sacramento. They're doing a fundraising like 5K, and so they've invited us to come and just do like a little warm up lesson, right? So I'll be out there at 8:00 in the morning doing like a few moves, to warm people up.
That's awesome. What advice do you have for students that are interested in starting something on their own? You had this big idea and you made it come to life. So how do you get that ball rolling in that process?
It's always, you just can't be afraid to, you can't be afraid to not make something that's perfect, right? It's like you just sometimes just have to do it, and you'll find that people really, they'll like it. With my event, there was an idea that I had because I just wanted to bridge two groups, because at the time I was already into my career. I was working in the Capitol, and I was like, I want to share my love for dance with the Capitol community, and so I just got some speakers and put them, and I got the permits, right, that were required, but I put them up on the west steps, like on one side of the Capitol, and started playing music, and had invited a couple of my dance friends to come out, and we got like a few people. Like, it was something super small, but that was the start, right? That was just the start. Doesn't matter what it looks like, as long as you can see something out of it, right? And as long as you enjoy it as well, as long as you have fun. Eventually, you'll figure things out along the way, and then eventually you'll find the people who are supporting you, because that also makes a difference, right? Like, since I started it, people from the city, people from just whether it's like government, private businesses, like they've all just they've seen the benefits that this event has had, and so so they've helped us out to grow and given us opportunities. So so you'll definitely just don't be afraid to just start something and see it grow.
And don't be afraid to fail along the way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we're going to transition a little bit back to your role on the board with Cal Aggie Alumni. What has that been like? How did you get involved in that? Yeah,
so I just joined the board. I became an official board member in July. Right, that was they said okay, but the way that I got involved with the Cal Aggie Alumni Association was it's more so I had been active with alumni groups throughout the years. One of which was like the Chicanx Latinx Alumni Association, and so I was just involved with being engaged with different alumni groups, chapters, and Sacramento chapter, just making sure that we were always coming together, networking, providing opportunities, speaking with current students as well. So I would be invited to speak on for different clubs about just what I was up to, kind of like how to get a job post graduation. And so all those activities kind of eventually led to me being recognized as the young alumnus of the year, just because that plus I was just doing a lot of community events, so that's how I kind of became aware of the board itself. Actually, I was like, okay, there's an actual official group that's doing they're extremely active, making sure that alumni but also current students and are have all the resources available to them. And so that made me super interested in wanting to join the board, and I know that I have a few friends, I will say mentors, right, that got on the board a few years prior, a few years ago, and then they just wanted to make sure that we both make sure that the board is both age diverse but also culturally diverse. And so if you look at the board itself, it's actually it's very diverse, on both with both age cultural diversity. So it's yeah. So and yeah, so that all those little things just led to me now joining the board. And one thing that I'm now a part of is the Student Success Committee. And so as part of that, one of my roles is to be able to think of ways of how we're engaging the current students and making sure that they find success, through and then post-graduation.
That's important work. I think a lot of people don't think of life after college and how you can stay involved, but that is one way, the alumni board. So that's awesome. And then our final question, just to wrap it up, what advice would you give to someone considering applying to UC Davis? You've shared so many of your experiences. You've been a part of so many things. So as for any prospective or future students, what would you tell them if they were thinking about applying to UC Davis?
I mean, first thing, come to the campus, right? See what it has to offer, because I think it's a beautiful campus. You're gonna be biking all over the place, so make sure make sure you can bike. And then, but also just think about, where you see yourself through the university, and like if. And, what, and then try to, knowing what your major is not really, it's not, you don't have to have that set before you come to the graduation. I mean, before you come to UC Davis, but you definitely, you're going to be in a good academic institution, so you're going to have a lot of opportunities from that. But but just, let's see. Sorry, that's a good...
Yeah, it's a little bit of pressure. It's okay.
Yeah. No, I guess one thing is when you do come on campus, make sure you're going to be ready to bike throughout the campus, but also able to take public transportation. Because I know there's going to be some internship opportunities that are going to be in Sacramento and in the Bay Area. So, I mean, Davis, it's in a good location where we're not too far away from other job and internship opportunities. But yeah, you just got to make sure that you'll be able to get there, right? Because internships are really important. I mean, you're currently doing your internship here. Like I mentioned earlier, I did 2 internships. So definitely, when you come to the university, figure out your major, but then also figure out, all right, what internships can I do that are related to my major, and then on top of that, how am I going to get there? If it's not virtual, then how am I going to get there on in person, right? So, so I guess that's what I'll say as far as recommendation. Just get those internships, volunteer.
I mean, based on your story, really just be involved. There's so many opportunities to be involved. So
be involved, exactly. And then being involved on campus too will lead to a lot of other opportunities too. Because I would say if you're doing really well on, if you get along with a professor, based on just the work that you're doing in class, but also just through your clubs, and if they're those all the activity that you do is going to be noticed by somebody. Whether it's a professor, whether it's other mentors, counselors, and then they can guide you to certain positions that you may not have known about or heard about. So definitely make the most of those.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that's all of our questions for today. I want to thank you so much for coming and taking the time to talk and let people know about your experience and what their experience at UC Davis can look like. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and go Ags.